Good day, folks. Thank you for joining us here at Your Health. On today's program, we'd like to talk about the remarkable medicinal mushroom, Cordyceps sinensis. This unique organism grows in the Tibetan mountains. It's really a fascinating subject. It helps provide energy, and it helps us recover from serious illness. That's the traditional use of cordyceps, but it can be used for so many more things, and I'm sure you'll want to learn all about that. Stay tuned for that, but first let's go to our news. Let's see what's happening in the health world. The occurrence of falls among the elderly resulting in concussions is increasing. The Centers for Disease Control report about 1 of every 45 Americans, 75 years of age and up, suffered brain injury from a fall last year. That is a 76% increase over 10 years. The study did not determine why seniors are falling at an increased rate. However, the study's authors suggest increased awareness of head injuries due to sport accidents may be playing a role. Also, it is well known seniors are more prone to falls due to impaired vision and weakened muscles and bones. Related research from the University of Michigan finds the number of retired Americans who are taking 3 or more psychiatric drugs has increased by 150% over the last 10 years. The study analyzed doctor office visits for the prescribing practices for medications such as antidepressants, sleeping pills, mood stabilizers, pain medications, and sedatives. The study also found 45% of the people receiving psychiatric medications had no diagnosis of mood, sleep, or chronic pain problems. The study was published by the Journal of the American Medical Association. Well, folks, it appears that elderly Americans are falling and suffering head injuries at an alarming and increasing rate. 1 of every 45 seniors suffered a fall last year, and that's about a 76% increase compared with 10 years ago. These figures could even be conservative, as many times seniors do not tell a soul when they fall for fear of losing their independence. The study was not designed to pinpoint a reason for the increase of falls among our seniors. However, our second story provides a very plausible cause. Seniors are taking more psychiatric-based drugs than ever. 150% increase in those taking 3 or more drugs, such as pain meds, sleeping pills, mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and sedatives. These medications are well known to increase the risk of falls in young and old alike, but particularly in seniors. Perhaps the most shocking finding of this study was that almost half of the seniors taking these medications had no diagnosis on their medical charts that justified the use of these powerful drugs. Bottom line, seniors and those who provide care for seniors, as we age, we respond differently to medications. Often we cannot tolerate the same medications we've taken for years. All of a sudden they make us dizzy and we fall. So please, review all your meds with your pharmacist and your doctor, as you could prevent a concussion or a broken hip. Better sleep makes you feel as though you have won the lottery. Researchers from the University of Warwick analyzed more than 30,000 subjects' sleep patterns over a 4-year period. They found improving sleep over time led to mental and physical health gains equivalent to winning a jackpot of about $225,000. The study found sleep quality is more important than length of time spent asleep. They also found a lack of sleep, bad quality sleep, and using more sleep medication can lead to worsened medical and emotional states. The study was published by the medical journal Sleep. Related research from the University of Sussex finds listening to the sounds of nature helps us to relax. The study found listening to a babbling brook or the sound of the wind rustling through the trees influences the fight or flight and rest and digest autonomic nervous systems. The researchers observed subtle changes in heart rate and brain activity on MRI scans while the study subjects listened to the sounds of nature. The study was published by Scientific Reports. Well, this is fascinating. Here we learn that getting a good night's sleep over time is as emotionally rewarding as winning a $225,000 lottery. I'd like that, wouldn't you? Have we not all experienced the difference a good night's sleep provides? And over time, if each night after the next provides highly rewarding sleep, it makes perfect sense that our overall mental and physical health would improve remarkably. It is interesting to note the study found those who rely on medications to get their sleep, well, they did not experience the rewards that naturally induced high-quality sleep provides. Our second story provides a clue on how to get a good night's sleep. Listen to the sounds of nature prior to falling asleep. I think everyone has experienced the relaxing effect of the sounds of nature, a babbling brook, birds chirping in the distance, or the wind rustling through the trees, and it is common knowledge that these sounds are relaxing. But what this study achieved was a scientific explanation of how the sounds of nature help to calm us. Nature sounds help to reset the autonomic nervous system, that part of our nervous system that controls bodily functions such as blood pressure and digestion without requiring our conscious input. They found the more stressed and anxious a person was, the more they were able to relax when listening to the sounds of nature. That's great. Incorporating the sounds of nature into a complete holistic plan for restorative sleep can make all the difference in your health. On today's program, we'd like to discuss the remarkable medicinal mushroom Cordyceps sinensis. Stay tuned to learn more. You may have heard about Cordyceps sinensis, the medicinal mushroom that supports metabolic processes for stimulant-free energy. Cordyceps sinensis also nutritionally supports the immune and respiratory systems, as well as the heart and the lungs.
BioInnovations brings you Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Cordyceps sinensis. And today, when you buy one bottle of Cordyceps sinensis at the regular price, you'll receive a second bottle free. That's right, buy one and get one free.
Cordyceps sinensis is among the safest and most powerful medicinal mushrooms available, making it your choice for stimulant-free natural energy.
That's special once again. Today only, when you buy one bottle of Cordyceps at the regular price, you'll receive a second one free. So give us a call at 888-442-1828 or order online at bioinnovations.net. Be sure to ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings.
I'm Cindy Becker, and this is Your Health at a Glance. Do you want to maintain your mental clarity? With people living longer, we need more research into the ways to lower the risk of dementia. Studies are showing us that people who regularly read books, complete puzzles, or solve word games like the Sunday crossword puzzle maintain their mental abilities longer than people who don't. We also preserve memory by maintaining social activities, such as volunteering, attending religious services, or regularly talking with friends and neighbors. And diet plays a big role as well. It's important to eat a nutritious diet free from heavy metals and chemical pollutants and full of vitamins and the essential fatty acids which power the brain. These simple and important steps will help keep you mentally healthy for many years to come. For Your Health at a Glance, I'm Cindy Becker.
Every day, about 200 million Americans do not get enough of a key essential mineral.
That mineral is magnesium. The typical American diet does not supply enough.
And magnesium is so important. It protects bones and helps more than 300 different enzymes in the human body perform efficiently.
That's why BioInnovations offers chelated magnesium capsules for oral use and topical magnesium gel to be applied to the skin. That's 2 forms of magnesium to meet your daily needs.
Scientific evidence points to chelation as the best method of vitamin and mineral formulation.
So call 888-442-1828 or go online at bioinnovations.net to place your order. Ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings.
Because chances are you are one of the 200 million Americans who need more magnesium every day.
Welcome back, everyone. It's great to be with you today. Today's show is going to be really interesting again. And don't I say that almost every day? But that's because these topics are just fantastic. And what we learn about what these natural things can do for our health, well, now that is what's amazing. Today's topic is cordyceps. You say, what is cordyceps? It's a medicinal mushroom. This one is relatively new in our lineup, but wow, what a fantastic element it is. So, Richard, Cordyceps sinensis, what in the world is that?
Well, it is one of the medicinal mushrooms, which can be very helpful with health challenges. There are some 700 different types of mushrooms that are currently used as food, and about 35 of these or so are considered to have medicinal properties. The fundamental active agent in a medicinal mushroom is a glucan. alpha and beta glucans. And a glucan is a repeating carbohydrate starchy type molecule, much like cellulose or dietary starch that we would digest. But the glucans, it's arranged in such a way that we do not digest it. So it's more like a fibrous agent. However, it's even different than fiber in that it activates receptors in certain cells in our body. And it can turn on the immune system. It can activate the immune system and do other things as well. So there are many medicinal agents, chemical constituents in medicinal mushrooms, but the glucans are the famous ones. But there are others involved as well. In the Eastern philosophy of medicine, they use medicinal mushrooms to balance systems. You know, they have the yin and the yang concept, the balance of life and disease, hot and cold and this type of thing. And so the medicinal mushrooms help to balance the system. And Cordyceps sinensis, our topic for today, is traditionally used to restore energy after serious illness. That's the traditional use of cordyceps. There are over 680 different varieties of cordyceps fungi. The majority of these feed on insects. And let me explain that. A spore from the mushroom, the reproductive spore, lands on a caterpillar. It infects the caterpillar, and the body of the caterpillar becomes the mycelium or root system of the mushroom, and the fruiting body or the mushroom comes out of the body of the caterpillar. Now that's the traditional way to use cordyceps, but the modern system of producing cordyceps does not rely on the mushroom. There's no mushroom, there's no caterpillar in this process anymore for the type of cordyceps that we have for you. So we bypass, because I don't want to eat caterpillars. You don't know where that caterpillar's been, right? That's not part of this anymore. Let's talk more about this. What does Cordyceps sinensis mean? Cord means club. Ceps is the head, so club-headed. Sinensis is Chinese, so club-headed Chinese mushroom. That's literally what that means. Now, the mycologists have gotten together and they've asked us to rename cordyceps to Ophiocordyceps sinensis. And the Ophio comes from Ophidian, which is Greek for snake. So it's like snake club-headed mushroom that grows out of a caterpillar. That's kind of how I think of that. And I probably won't call it Ophiocordyceps sinensis. I'll just call it cordyceps today. We have a lot to talk about. This is really a fascinating little mushroom. Sinensis, cordyceps, grows naturally at high altitude from 10,000 to 16,000 feet in the Himalayan mountains, primarily in Tibet on the Tibetan Plateau. These are the high foothills that go up to those huge Himalayan mountains, the tallest mountains in the world. And this little mushroom, it grows out of a caterpillar. And the Tibetan yak herders observed their animals, the yaks, eating this mushroom, and it gave them energy. And of course, everything's food until proven otherwise. And they wondered, well, could we take that and improve our energy? You can imagine working at 15,000 feet, it'd be easy to run out of energy. And even though they're highly adapted to that high altitude, they began to eat the Cordyceps sinensis, and they found it helped with their energy levels as well. So word got out. And the Cordyceps sinensis had been used in Tibet for at least 600 years. That's the recorded history, and probably much longer than that. In China, the ancient emperors would use cordyceps, and they'd restrict its use to the royal palace. Nobody else could have it. You commoners can't have it. Only the emperor and his family could have the cordyceps. And it's become so popular that it's been over-harvested. At its peak, some 100 tons of Cordyceps sinensis was produced annually back in the 1950s. Now that harvest is down to 10 tons or even less. This has led to counterfeit Cordyceps sinensis. It may look like cordyceps, but it's not. And so when you consider the motivation to sell counterfeit cordyceps, because 1 kilogram of true cordyceps can cost as much as $80,000, $100,000. 2.2 pounds, $100,000. That works out to about $50 to $60 a pill. Nobody can afford to do that. We're not going to do that. So what happens when you have that much money involved in something that comes from as far away as Tibet? It's going to get substituted. Don't you think? It's going to get substituted a lot. Plus, they've also found that with this substitution comes contamination. They've isolated heavy metals and pesticides out of cordyceps from the natural source. So we don't do that anymore. Farmers have taken the mycelia and they grow it in farms now. And they darken an area. They make it cold to mimic that high altitude environment of Tibet, and they're able to grow the mycelia in a farm setting at sea level, and it works beautifully. And the new studies have shown, they compared the traditional caterpillar-grown Cordyceps sinensis with the mycelia. The mycelia is the root system. The fruiting body is the mushroom. And so they create a root system mycelial growth, it's called, and the chemical compositions are not exactly equivalent, but they're very, very close. And in fact, some of the medicinal agents are found in more abundance in the mycelial growth. So we can keep it pure, we can keep it clean, it keeps it cheap, so we can all use it. The mycelial growth Cordyceps sinensis is the way to go. We wouldn't carry Cordyceps sinensis if we had to count on a supply chain that went through multiple hands. With that kind of price, nobody could benefit from it.
And no caterpillars.
No caterpillars. So
right.
It's win-win. It's the best way to do it. Dr. Halpern, MD, PhD, one of the world's leading mycologists, says Cordyceps is one of the safest medicinal foods. It's a complex organism with a diverse chemical constituency. The putative use, this means putative means the historic cultural use. Tibetan folk healers use cordyceps as a foundational agent to treat their 21 fundamental illnesses. They would break all illnesses into 21 different categories, and as an assisting agent for healing for all illnesses and serious disease. Also used to compensate for the challenges of aging, improve libido, lowering blood glucose levels and diabetes and cholesterol levels, improving weakness or asthenia, that's what that means, arrhythmias of the heart, lung disease, along with strengthening the kidneys, while improving blood flow and protecting organs. If we look at a summary of the scientific research on Cordyceps sinensis, we find over 30 bioactive ingredients, including polyglucans such as cordiglucan that's found nowhere else, alpha and beta glucans, polysaccharides, nucleosides such as cordycepin, adenosine, and 10 others, steroids, ergosteroids, 18 different amino acids, proteins, enzymes, peptides, gamma-aminobutyric acid, and others. You have to understand, the typical fungi, mushroom, has more DNA material than a human being. They're very complex organisms. They can change shapes. And so they are, by their very nature, complex with a diverse chemical constituency. The properties of Cordyceps sinensis includes a unique ability to modulate physiologic processes. And this is primarily through the glucan content. See, these glucans, for example, resemble the cell membrane, the cell wall of a bacteria. And when our immune system sees that cell wall-like material, it activates the immune system as though it were to fight in an infection. And this helps to correct aberrant physiology, but it doesn't stimulate it to the point of an autoimmune disease. So it's beneficial without long-term complications. It also acts as a natural antibiotic, a natural antifungal, antiviral, anti-atherosclerotic, anti-inflammatory, and antidepressant, anti-osteoporosis, phytoprotection, prevention of organ injury, promotion of endurance, which is its most famous use, learning memory improvement, immune modulation, anti-diabetes, liver, kidney protection, and tumor inhibition. If you want to read where that came from, that would be Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine, 2015. Now, let's go to our break. When we return, let's talk specifically about cordyceps and the cancer patient. We'll be right back. You may have heard about Cordyceps sinensis, the medicinal mushroom that supports metabolic processes for stimulant-free energy. Cordyceps sinensis also nutritionally supports the immune and respiratory systems, as well as the heart and the lungs.
BioInnovations brings you Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Cordyceps sinensis. And today, when you buy one bottle of Cordyceps sinensis at the regular price, you'll receive a second bottle free. That's right, buy one and get one free.
Cordyceps sinensis is among the safest and most powerful medicinal mushrooms available, making it your choice for stimulant-free natural energy.
That's special once again. Today only, when you buy one bottle of Cordyceps at the regular price, you'll receive a second one free. So give us a call at 888-442-1828 or order online at bioinnovations.net. Be sure to ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings.
I'm Cindy Becker, and this is Your Health at a Glance. Are you following a low-fat diet? While it's true that too much fat makes us overweight, certain types of fat are actually good for us. Add to your diet omega-3 fats such as fish and flaxseed oil, and omega-9 oleic acid found in olive oil. And reduce in your diet omega-6 found in corn, safflower, and peanut oil, and saturated fats found in meats and whole milk dairy products. Studies show those fats can promote inflammation and chronic disease. The Mediterranean diet can help you make good choices, such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean meats, fish, olives, and olive oil. So remember, increase omega-3 and omega-9 fats. Reduce omega-6 and saturated fat. For Your Health at a Glance, I'm Cindy Becker. Are you one of the 62 million Americans suffering from gastrointestinal problems? Do you struggle with other chronic conditions? That's why we offer Dr. Becker's Bionutrient Probiotics.
After years of research, we developed a revolutionary probiotic formula with GastroDefense technology. This system protects the good bacteria from stomach acid so the probiotics reach the intestines where they go to work. Additionally, we use live count technology to prolong the shelf life of the probiotics, so there's no need for refrigeration.
Dr. Becker's Bionutrient Probiotics is a powerful combination and one of the most effective formulas available today. And we offer a children's chewable formula too, both at prices you can afford. Order online at bioinnovations.net or call 888-442-1828 and ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings. We're back, everyone, talking about the medicinal mushroom cordyceps. Now we're going to be talking about cordyceps and its nutritional support for the cancer patient. This one's quite interesting. So, Richard, this one is a whole nother area of study, but fantastic.
Yes, multiple studies have identified cordyceps' chemical makeup that make it a great anti-cancer agent. It contains nucleotides, and nucleosides. These are little pieces of DNA-like material, and it gets into the cancer cells, and it confuses the cancer cell's reproductive mechanism. And so it stops making new cancer cells, or it inhibits it. It depresses that action to make new cancer cells. And they've been able to clarify the mechanism. And see, cordyceps contains these molecules. The interesting thing is that normal cells, they continue to replicate as they're supposed to. So it doesn't interfere with our normal process, but it does the cancer cells. It also contains unique peptides, which are short chains of amino acids, including cyclopeptides, 5 amino acids in a circle that have unique actions. Found in no other living thing that we know of. They're really quite unique. Beta-glucans, alpha-glucans, and a new compound called cortiglucan that's not found. It's a glucan. These immune-modulating molecules not found anywhere but cordyceps. Adenosine and cordycepin resemble pieces of DNA and RNA. That's back to that concept. Pieces of DNA, pieces of RNA that confuse the tumor cells into quitting replication. Adenosine inhibits cancer cell replication. Cordycepin at low doses inhibits cancer growth and division of tumor cells. At high doses, it inhibits tumor cell adhesion. A tumor cell has to adhere together to be a formidable foe. That adhesion together prevents the immune system from attacking inside the core where it's all replicating. It's one of the reasons why we have trouble treating cancer. And cordyceps helps to break those tumor cells apart so the immune system can get in and do what it needs to do. Now, none of this is approved by the FDA as a treatment for cancer. I want to be very clear about this, but this cordyceps has been used for cancer therapy for hundreds of years, and in some cases very successfully as nutritional support for the cancer patient. Also, cordyceps has powerful antioxidant properties that protects from the side effects of chemotherapy and radiation. So it's a good add-on to the chemotherapy patient to minimize the side effects of chemotherapy and radiation. The alpha and beta glucans modulate macrophages and lymphocytes, improving their immune response. So we put all this together. And what does it do for the cancer patient? The Naiwa Institute in Japan did a study of 101 hepatocellular carcinoma patients. This is primary liver cancer, not metastasis to the liver like we usually see in America, but the tumor is growing primarily in the liver. That's where it originated. It's very difficult to treat. Very difficult to treat. 101 patients, they evaluated 12 different natural agents. They also used chemotherapy, surgery, radiation, and other things. They wanted to know which of these 12 agents works the best. And you know what they found? When Cordyceps sinensis was added to any of the different herbal remedies, it improved the outcomes in these patients. In fact, they found when Cordyceps was given along with usual therapies, the patient lived 40 months. If they did not get Cordyceps, they only lived 7 months. That's a profound difference. That's quality of lifetime. That gives you time to do some of the things you want to get done before you pass on. Remember, hepatocellular carcinoma is a very difficult cancer to treat. If you can cut it out early, you have a chance of a cure. But there are no symptoms early. That's the problem. It's usually spread and gotten quite large before people realize they're sick. Let's go on to immunity. So clearly, cordyceps can play a role in cancer therapy. Immunity. Cordyceps modulates the immune system via a variety of alpha and beta glucan content. To give you a good example, autoimmune thyroid disease, Hashimoto's, Graves' disease. One causes primarily low thyroid, one causes primarily high thyroid activity, and they're both driven by antibodies that attack the thyroid gland. They found if you give these patients the usual treatments, the standard of care treatments, but you add cordyceps to the therapy, outcomes improved. It helped to balance the immune system that is attacking the gland and causing the disease. It helped to negate that, and they had better outcomes. So we can complement our natural therapies with cordyceps for autoimmune thyroiditis. Isn't that amazing? This is a very common condition in America. Wide application for cordyceps. Cordyceps stimulates the immune system, modulates the immune system by increasing macrophage and lymphocyte activity. It's been very well studied. Shown cordyceps improves immune function through a variety of mechanisms. Cordyceps is a potent anti-inflammatory and analgesic agent, and the mechanism has been clarified. Cordyceps peptide is a potent anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective agent, decreases tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 1b, while improving antioxidant status. It's not important you know all those big terms. The reason I say those is so that you know the mechanism has been identified and it's been thoroughly studied. I don't want anybody to think that we base our opinions here on this program on junk science. This stuff is very well studied, and it's in the Asian culture, they go to these agents first. They always do that. It's their method of practice. When they fail, and they do, they don't always work, no method always works, then they go to the doctor for medicines and surgeries and things. But it's been studied for many times. If I could read Chinese, we would have thousands of more articles to read on cordyceps, but I can't. But we have a lot in English as well, thousands of them as it is. Cordyceps decreases and modulates NF-kappa beta, thereby downregulating cancer genesis, reducing pain and inflammation, along with the destructive effects of autoimmune disease. Cordyceps helps immunity by directly inhibiting the growth of bacteria, viruses, parasites, and tumor cells. Remember how they discovered penicillin? It was a mold growing on a petri dish by accident, and Fleming said, "Oh, my germ's not growing. Wherever there's mold, my germ is not growing. I'm studying this germ. I think it was strep or staph. I don't remember what germ it was. But wherever that penicillin mold was growing, there was no bacteria growing. He says, I wonder if we could use that to treat infectious disease. Mycology, mold, mushrooms, fungi, they're complex beings. They make antibiotics. And cordyceps contains natural antibiotics, not only for bacteria, but for viruses and fungi as well, to prevent competitive organisms from taking over. So it's a natural source of antibiotics. Isn't that great? We have more on cordyceps when we return. You may have heard about Cordyceps sinensis, the medicinal mushroom that supports metabolic processes for stimulant-free energy. Cordyceps sinensis also nutritionally supports the immune and respiratory systems, as well as the heart and the lungs.
BioInnovations brings you Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Cordyceps sinensis. And today, when you buy one bottle of Cordyceps sinensis at the regular price, you'll receive a second bottle free. That's right, buy one and get one free.
Cordyceps sinensis is among the safest and most powerful medicinal mushrooms available, making it your choice for stimulant-free natural energy.
That's special once again. Today only, when you buy one bottle of Cordyceps at the regular price, you'll receive a second one free. So give us a call at 888-442-1828 or order online at bioinnovations.net. Be sure to ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings.
I'm Cindy Becker for Your Health at a Glance. Do you like to exercise outdoors? Many consider gardening one of life's most rewarding activities. The American Heart Association says gardening promotes a strong heart, and it helps to preserve brain mass in seniors. Follow these guidelines so your gardening experience will be enjoyable for years to come. Wear a wide-brimmed hat and protect your skin from too much sun. Wear gloves and sunglasses even on cloudy days. Make your posture strong by bending from the knees. Consider wearing knee pads. Start with small jobs. Set a gentle pace and ask for help when moving heavy objects. Pause frequently and drink lots of water. Whether it's trimming bushes, cutting grass, or growing nutritious vegetables, gardening is a great way to get your exercise and get back to the earth. For Your Health at a Glance, I'm Cindy Becker.
For centuries, the herb astragalus has been a staple of traditional Chinese medicine. It's used to create a strong shield, protecting the immune system.
Astragalus is also used to support healthy heart and lung function.
There's even more. Astragalus helps to calm total body inflammation, a common cause of pain and chronic illness.
All of that without the use of medication.
That's right. Support your health the way nature intended with astragalus root.
BioInnovations brings you Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Astragalus Root Extract. BioInnovations is the affordable source that you can trust for all your vitamin and supplement needs. Give us a call at 888-442-1828 or order online at bioinnovations.net and see what astragalus can do for your health. That number once again is 888-442-1828. Call today.
We're back, everyone, having a great discussion on cordyceps, the medicinal mushroom that is just amazing. And to help you get the cordyceps today, we have a great special at BioInnovations. We have Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Cordyceps. Buy one, get one free. You buy one bottle at the regular price, you get a second bottle free. And that's today only, so don't miss it. So, Richard, now we have another area that cordyceps is really remarkable for, and that is the cardiovascular system.
Remember, the ancient cultural use of cordyceps is to regain energy after a major illness, whatever that is. Okay. And they would use it as a foundational ingredient of their herbal formulas. They would add things to it. And so the cardiovascular application is quite interesting. Cordyceps has been found to inhibit platelet aggregation, so it helps to keep our blood from getting sticky. The same reason why people take an aspirin every day to keep the blood flowing. You can do this with natural agents. This makes it helpful in virtually all the cardiovascular disease situations. It's also a natural cholesterol-lowering agent. One study found 3 grams of cordyceps a day lowered total cholesterol levels by 21%. That's a pretty good drop. That's pretty nice. But no statin side effects. And by the way, statin drugs originally came from mushrooms. It's a mycotic byproduct. That's where they originally came from. There is no statin drug in cordyceps, however. I want you to know that. So it wouldn't interfere with something else that you're doing. What else? Arrhythmias, cardiovascular disease, heart arrhythmias. This is really fascinating. Pay close attention. Cordyceps has rare and unique anti-arrhythmia properties. Subjects with ventricular arrhythmias, this is an arrhythmia originating from the ventricle of the heart, like a PVC, that type of thing. 1,500 milligrams of cordyceps, 80% of those patients improved in this study. 83% improved with supraventricular arrhythmia arising from the atrium, the top part of the heart. There's quite a wide variety of those. 3 grams a day, 83% improved. And after 3 months, 83% showed either partial or complete recovery. 83% improvement. Some of them had no more arrhythmias at all. More than half of those tested arrhythmias disappeared in less than 3 weeks. Isn't that remarkable? Think of all the medicines that people take ongoing to control arrhythmias. Some of them are fraught with side effects. And life is almost miserable, but my heart's beating normally. But I feel terrible, but my heart's beating normally. We do have alternatives. I wish our doctors would learn more about these natural alternatives because they're quite effective. Chinese scientific literature reveals extensive studies of cordyceps in arrhythmias and heart benefits. Antioxidant activity decreases stroke damage in laboratory animals. Let's move on to diabetes. Cordyceps and diabetes. Varied actions ameliorate and lowers the effects of diabetes. Cordyceps lowers glucose levels, it improves insulin resistance, it lowers cholesterol, triglyceride levels, and it counters the free radicals that drive the complications of diabetes, the neuropathies, the organ damage. All this can be minimized with a smart plan, including cordyceps. Cordyceps with or without taurine reduces glucose, triglycerides, total cholesterol, fructosamine, these are the byproducts that cause damage in diabetes, malondialdehyde. It improves the measures of control of the diabetic and helping to reduce complications of diabetes. Here's a study, 19 out of 20 type 2 diabetics. 95% of them showed improved glycemic control within 30 days of cordyceps. 8 of 19 of those that showed improved control, almost half no longer had any proteinuria. In other words, you know what the doctor does when he checks up on you for the diabetes? He checks your urine for protein. If you're spilling a lot of protein, it means you're getting kidney damage. Almost half the people who took cordyceps no longer had any protein spilling. Isn't that amazing? That is such a good thing. If you know anything about managing diabetics, you would go, wow, that's remarkable. I want to know more. Well, we know from laboratory studies, cordyceps improves the HDL-LDL ratio, it decreases body weight, protects the pancreas function, enhances and protected kidney function. So it's a perfect little supplement for the diabetic. You know, include your milk thistle, include your chromium, your alpha-lipoic acid, have more healthy oils, less carbohydrates and sugars. Get your daily exercise, 30 minutes of walking every day. You can manage this diabetes and you can decrease the complications and live a better life. It's possible, and cordyceps can play that role. Let's talk about what made cordyceps famous, and that's the delivery of energy to the organs. It's really amazing. Multiple studies, cordyceps increases the liver's production of ATP by about 50%. ATP is to your body's energy exchange like the dollar bill is to American and worldwide commerce. We couldn't get by without it, and you won't live but about 10 seconds without ATP in your body. And cordyceps increases that production by up to 50% through the liver. That is an amazing. So that's going to help all of your cardiovascular diseases. It's going to help the chronic fatigue. It's going to supply energy to fight infections, to heal after surgery. Fatigue. 30 healthy seniors, cordyceps improved oxygen utilization significantly. Better exercise tolerance for seniors, that's been proven in studies. Exercise tolerance, 20 healthy elderly patients. This is a double-blind, placebo-controlled after 12 weeks. 1 gram of cordyceps, and that's a low dose. Usually we talk 3 to 9 grams a day of cordyceps, but even 1 gram improved exercise performance by 10%. See, that may be enough. It doesn't sound like much, but that may be enough to allow you to do your grocery shopping again. At a slow, steady pace, you can get through the entire store without feeling terrible again. This is how you make a difference. Endurance. Healthy sedentary seniors after 12 weeks of 3 grams of cordyceps improved aerobic capacity, their physical strength, their endurance performance, exercise metabolism, and body weight was reduced significantly. It was a pound or two. It wasn't a lot, but just by taking the metabolism improved enough that it made a difference for the seniors. 30 to 70% improved endurance in swimming and forced swimming in animal studies. That's a remarkable improvement. Now, let's go to our break. But liver and kidney, probably, I would say this is the most amazing. Near miraculous results in kidney disease and liver disease with cordyceps when we return. You may have heard about Cordyceps sinensis, the medicinal mushroom that supports metabolic processes for stimulant-free energy. Cordyceps sinensis also nutritionally supports the immune and respiratory systems, as well as the heart and the lungs.
BioInnovations brings you Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Cordyceps sinensis. And today, when you buy 1 bottle of Cordyceps sinensis at the regular price, you'll receive a second bottle free. That's right, buy 1 and get 1 free.
Cordyceps sinensis is among the safest and most powerful medicinal mushrooms available, making it your choice for stimulant-free natural energy.
That's special once again. Today only, when you buy 1 bottle of Cordyceps at the regular price, you'll receive a second one free. So give us a call at 888-442-1828 or order online at bioinnovations.net. Be sure to ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings.
Here is our hope for you today. I'm Cindy Becker. Do you feel that you'll never really be joyful and happy in your life? The Reverend Billy Graham wrote about these 2 emotions, joy and happiness. Dr. Graham says, joy is not the same as happiness, although they may overlap. Happiness depends on circumstances. Joy depends on God. In Psalm 30, David, whose life seemed an endless battle, experienced joy despite his problems as king of Israel. David wrote, "You turned my wailing into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy, that my heart may sing to you and not be silent." If you are struggling to find joy in your life, pray to God. Count your blessings. Joy depends on God. I'm Cindy Becker. This is our hope for you today.
Vitamin D deficiency is at epidemic levels in the United States. Chances are you aren't getting enough of this essential nutrient. Vitamin D is one of the most important molecules in the human body. It's required for the proper function of nearly 4,000 genes and 1,000 metabolic chemical reactions.
BioInnovations brings you Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Vitamin D3. Now, supplementing with vitamin D is safe and affordable.
Studies show that vitamin D deficiency can lead to poor immune function, depression, cardiovascular disease, bone disease, diabetes, cancer, and much more. Starting supplementing vitamin D today for better health tomorrow.
BioInnovations is the affordable source that you can trust for all your vitamin and supplement needs. So give us a call at 888-442-1828 or order online at bioinnovations.net. Be sure to ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings.
We're back, everyone, learning so much about cordyceps today, aren't we? This is fantastic. And to help you get the cordyceps at BioInnovations, we have a great deal for you today. We have the Bionutrients Cordyceps Buy One, Get One Free. Buy 1 bottle at the regular price, and you get a second bottle free. Fantastic. So, Richard,
Now we say perhaps one of the most important areas that cordyceps shines is for the liver and kidney patient.
Yes, and some of these are remarkable and almost hard to believe, but let's go through them and let's see what you think. Here we have studies, helps improve chronic liver inflammation from hepatitis. This is a liver inflammation. 60% in this study showed improved immune responses. One of the problems with chronic hepatitis is your immune system becomes deficient. 60% showed improved immune response. 70% of them showed improvement of the liver enzymes. It calms an inflamed liver. That makes you feel better, a lot better. 22 patients with cirrhosis, they took a larger dose, 6 to 9 grams a day. It's okay to take that much, but it is a larger dose. All of them improved. 68% of them showed no sign of cirrhosis on subsequent liver biopsy. That's the gold standard for diagnosing cirrhosis, is a liver biopsy. In 68% of this smaller study, no cirrhosis on a biopsy. Remarkable prevention of chemical-induced liver damage in laboratory studies. That's a brand new study, and the mechanism explained. They know how it works. Cordyceps alpha-glucans mediate kidney function. Now we're on to kidney. The mechanism of ameliorating kidney failure was explained, thoroughly studied. You know, I say these little studies mentions in a few seconds, but they take months and hundreds of thousands of dollars to conduct these studies. They're very expensive to do, and I'd hate to waste the knowledge gained. Acute renal failure. Acute renal failure. There's an antibiotic, it's called gentamicin. We save it for severe gram-negative sepsis. And the reason we save it is it works, and two, it's highly toxic to our ears and our kidneys. And some people actually go deaf and go into renal failure, kidney failure, because of the antibiotic used to save their life. Well, they did a study. Would cordyceps help these people? In just 6 days of taking cordyceps for acute renal failure due to gentamicin, 89% recovered in 6 days, whereas only 45% recovered if they did not take cordyceps. So it doubled your chances of recovering from the insult gentamicin to the kidneys. Doubled your chances of recovering. Chronic renal failure. The previous one was acute renal failure due to a toxic substance. What about chronic renal failure, such as from diabetes? Patients given 5 grams of cordyceps a day all showed improved red blood cell count. If you're in renal failure, you know about this stuff. You know, your kidneys release erythropoietin, which stimulates the bone marrow to make more blood. It's an ongoing, normal process. But if your kidneys are failing, you don't make that erythropoietin, and you become anemic. Well, take the cordyceps, and the red blood cell count improves. Hemoglobin improves. 39% improved creatinine clearance test. The kidneys are working better. 34% drop in blood urea nitrogen, the byproducts the kidneys are responsible for detoxifying, and a 63% drop in proteinuria. In other words, all the protein goes out and then it's put back in because we want to save protein. But when you have kidney disease, you can't put it back into the bloodstream. So you get protein in your urine. If you take cordyceps, it helps to return it back in. It helps to improve the kidney function. All showed improved superoxide dismutase levels, meaning the natural antioxidant level in the kidney improved with cordyceps. What about kidney transplants? Anti-rejection drug cyclosporin causes kidney damage. You've waited for 3 years to get your kidney. You finally get one, but you have to take a drug to prevent rejection. Guess what? That drug can damage your new organ. Your new kidney may be damaged. Can cordyceps help that? In kidney transplant, give the cyclosporin, give also the cordyceps. What they found was it opens the vessels into your new kidney, reducing the kidney damage. It also improves the white blood cell counts, improving immunity in the transplant patients. Because remember, they're taking immune suppressive drugs. It leaves them susceptible to infections. So it improves the kidney function while improving the immune system in the transplant patients. This study has been repeated, and it's been repeated in China on heart transplant patients as well. It works there as well. Isn't that amazing? Why don't American doctors know about this? Well, we're doing our best to help the world know more about it. one person at a time. That's how you do it. The longer these transplant patients took cordyceps, the better their kidney function. They explained the mechanism, improves the kidney protective antioxidants, and superoxide dismutase. So, as I mentioned, it's been followed up and repeated, and cordyceps helps the transplant patient. It doesn't activate the immune system to attack the kidney. That's the most, you wouldn't want to take anything that activates the immune system. You may cause rejection of the kidney. Nope, they haven't found that. It improves the immune system everywhere else, improves the blood flow to the kidney and the other organs, helps you keep that very expensive kidney that's keeping you alive. Isn't that amazing? Well, let's go to our break. We have one more group, respiratory, and this is equally impressive when we return. Can you lower your risk of disease? The answer is yes. One way is by including fruit in your diet. Fruit contains valuable nutrients that can reduce the risk of heart disease, stroke, and even some cancers.
We've searched the world and found 4 fruits we believe are among the best. Noni from Polynesia, acai from the Amazon, and 2 new ones, goji and mangosteen.
These 4 juices each have amazing properties that make them great additions to your nutritional plan. If you're a diabetic or have chronic pain, these juices will help you feel better and have more energy. Plus, they help with digestion.
Now you can experience the health-promoting benefits of all 4 in one convenient package we call the Fruits of the World 4-Pack. And remember, it's 50% off by the case. Give us a call at 888-442-1828 or go online at bioinnovations.net. I'm Cindy Becker for Your Health at a Glance. We all have said, I need to get some exercise, but how many of us put on our walking shoes and go? Learning a little more about the health benefits of exercise may help you get motivated to lace up those walking shoes. Exercise helps to control our appetite and weight. It maintains strong muscles. It promotes the release of endorphins that counter depression while helping us feel good about our lives. Exercise helps to lower blood glucose, promotes a strong circulatory system, and controls cholesterol. Exercise even helps us get a good night's sleep. Recent research finds dog owners who regularly walk their pet are 34% more likely to achieve fitness goals. You can get all of these health benefits by walking 30 minutes 4 times a week, just 30 minutes a day. Start today, and you'll start to get all those benefits. For Your Health at a Glance, I'm Cindy Becker.
You may have heard about Cordyceps sinensis, the medicinal mushroom that supports metabolic processes for stimulant-free energy. Cordyceps sinensis also nutritionally supports the immune and respiratory systems, as well as the heart and the lungs.
BioInnovations brings you Dr. Becker's Bionutrients Cordyceps sinensis. And today, when you buy 1 bottle of Cordyceps sinensis at the regular price, you'll receive a second bottle free. That's right, buy 1 and get 1 free.
Cordyceps sinensis is among the safest and most powerful medicinal mushrooms available, making it your choice for stimulant-free natural energy.
That's special once again. Today only, when you buy 1 bottle of Cordyceps at the regular price, you'll receive a second one free. So give us a call at 888-442-1828 or order online at bioinnovations.net. Be sure to ask about the AutoShip program for additional savings. Your Health is brought to you by BioInnovations, trusted products for your health and well-being.
We're back, everyone. Just a quick reminder that the Cordyceps is buy 1, get 1 free today, so I don't want you to miss that one. So, Richard, Cordyceps and the respiratory system.
Yes. Folks, have you ever heard of chronic bronchitis, bronchiectasis, and how disabling that can be? I was able to find 3 studies. Seniors with chronic bronchitis, the typical length of disease was 12 years, suffered with this condition for 12 years. 90% of the study subjects found relief. 90% with cordyceps. 40% improved lung function testing. You know, when you blow into the tube and the doctor said, blow fast, blow hard, blow as many times as you can in 20 seconds, you know, that type of thing. 40% improved lung function testing. They had less coughing, less wheezing, less mucus production, improved. 50 patients with asthma, who failed to respond to standard medical treatment, and this was an inhaled steroid or a albuterol type puffer, you know, rescue inhaler. 3 grams of cordyceps for 10 days. Total effect, 81% improvement in symptoms. 81%. Here's another asthma study. 120 moderate to severe asthma patients. Severe asthma is life-threatening. 120 of them, they used the usual treatment, plus half of the study subjects received cordyceps. The half that improved cordyceps, a statistically significant improvement in quality of life and lung function scores. And they reduced the inflammatory markers, and they explained the mechanism. They mapped it all out. It all made sense. The explanation of how cordyceps improves asthma, it modulates T helper cells, and they worked on it. Helps asthma, let's leave it at that. An animal model of lung fibrosis induced inflammation reduction with cordyceps. So fibrosis, cystic fibrosis, anything that, or autoimmune fibrosis of the lungs, which is a very tough disease, cordyceps helps that. We don't have many things that help that, but cordyceps would, from an animal model. Anti-tumor, anti-metastatic, immune modulatory, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-platelet activity, antimicrobial, hypolipidemic, lowers the cholesterol and triglycerides, lowers glucose, anti-aging, brain and organ protective, kidney protective, renal protective, same thing, liver protective, and endurance promoting properties. It gives us energy. Mushrooms are complex living beings containing a wide variety of substances, so side effects are possible, but they're rare with cordyceps. Well, you know, we've all been taught, don't walk through the woods and pick up mushrooms and eat them, because you could get a poisonous mushroom and die from them. Most mushrooms cannot be eaten. They are poisonous, but the ones that can be are highly prized, and cordyceps is one of those. The mycelial culturing of cordyceps bypasses all the problems. You know, with the high value of cordyceps, as you've learned, you can understand why unscrupulous people would counterfeit this substance and charge thousands of dollars for a bottle of it. And they do that. But you don't have to worry about that when we control it like we do, the mycelial production. No counterfeits whatsoever. There is a potential interaction with the anticoagulants such as warfarin, Coumadin, Plavix. However, I could not find one case in the literature. Not one. But you better check your bleeding times if you're on warfarin or something that thins the blood, as they say. Check your bleeding times to adjust your dose if necessary. That's just a warning. We don't have any cases of that, but it could happen. The typical dose is from 3 to 9 grams a day. And many people take smaller doses as a maintenance, and that is fine. 500 milligram capsules, 2 capsules 3 times a day, but you can go much higher, all the way up to 9 grams a day, and be appropriate. Most of you don't need that high a dose for what you're trying to achieve. A daily dose, my typical dose is 6 capsules, which is about 3 grams. And if I feel I need a little extra later in the day, I'll repeat that. That's fine, because you could do that as well. Make the most of your therapeutic buck. Don't use more than you need. Well, folks, Cordyceps sinensis, it's a remarkable substance. Take advantage of it. Thank you for your kind attention. We'll see you here tomorrow on Your Health. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Introducing Paisano, the authentic pizza oven by Granite Stone. Now make the world's most delicious pizza with real stone right in your own home. You simply set it and let it make golden, crispy, extra cheesy stone-baked pies in under 6 minutes. You can get your Paisano pizza oven for just 3 easy payments of $39.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order free.
Call 1-800-299-6812 or order online at buypaisano.com.
You may want to attend college,
but you have a full-time job and kids that need your full-time attention.
How can you possibly attend college?
You learn online at South University.
Earn your degree any hour, any day, from anywhere.
And the credit transfer policies also make it easier to return to college.
The convenience of taking classes where you want,
The flexibility of taking classes when you want.
so you can become who you want.
South University Online.
1-800-207-9504.
Donald and Susan just paid off nearly $25,000 in credit card debt. How? They called Consolidated Credit, and with their debt management program, they cut their payments almost in half and worked with their creditors to reduce their average interest rate to around 5% so they could pay off all their debt faster. Think about it. When was the last time you were so happy you danced like this? You can get out of debt faster and start celebrating. In fact, for the past 30 years, we've helped hundreds of